Well, that was pretty funny. Yesterday I did my show and I thought it was Friday and I said Friday finale and all this and I ended. That's because I ended that book, W.B. Screws. And I went through to the 13 chapters of that book and thought it was a finale, so I come up with the idea of finale on a Friday, and yesterday was only Thursday. So there you are. Mixed up the days pretty good. So I decided to do another show today, and today's actually Friday. So I'm going to actually start this book, God's Celestial Purpose by John Essex. This is going to be a powerful book, and it's going to take a while, and I love it. The foreword I'll start with today, and that'll send you on your actual weekend to be happy on your weekend. This one's called Why Ephesians, and this is the foreword to this book. The inspiring of the scriptures covered a period of around 16 centuries before it was complete. During that period, God was making known to his saints what the scriptures were to contain. From the time of Moses through to the ministry of the Apostle Paul, and perhaps for some 20 years further, every event, every act of God recorded therein is part of the background to the letter we are about to consider. The whole of the scriptures are preparing for one book, and that book is Ephesians. The doctrines declared in Ephesians by God's apostle are of such moment that but for God's revealing of them to us, we would be unable to grasp them. So these are the heights in Ephesians. Paul prays that the saints will be given a spirit of wisdom and revelation in the realization of God, that they might perceive what is the expectation of his calling. Unless there is enlightenment by his Spirit, we will fail to grasp the riches of his glory, or to glimpse God's ultimate goal, when his wisdom will have truly united his love and his righteousness. Ephesians represents the pinnacle of God's revelation to us. For in this book, nothing stands between God and his saints. It has been remarked by some scholars that in considering the means of God's ways, we have forgotten about the goal. The urgency of the needs of sinners has pressed consideration of the prison epistles, and these three are Ephesians, Philippians, and Colossians. Out of immediate focus, and the ultimate of God's intention is largely lost to sight. From earliest times in Scripture, there has been estrangement between God and man. This followed from Adam's transgression, and deepened as humanity developed its own beliefs and religions. Knowing God, not as God do they glorify or thank him. The chosen nation Israel proved no better, and the law rather than bringing them near to God intensified the estrangement and drew down God's indignation because of their failure to keep it. As the priestly nation, Israel was to be God's representative on earth, and approach to God was only through that nation. When Israel failed, the approach to God was no longer possible. But God now declares his evangel apart from law. Its basis is a righteousness of God through Jesus Christ's faith for all and on all who are believing. For all and on all who are believing. Furthermore, Revelation shows us that God is now conciliated to the world through the death of his Son, and no longer reckons men's offenses against them, placing in us the word of the conciliation. And you can reference this to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 19 through 21. We can only approach Ephesians by way of Romans, where God shows that he is the just justifier of the ungodly. Ephesians 3:26. In justification, God's own righteousness is given to us. Without that righteousness, we could never enter into his presence. For justice had withstood the purposes of his love. Romans is preparing for Ephesians. Nothing now stands between God and his saints. The efforts of humanity have been a failure, but what the law could not do is that it was weak through the flesh. God has done. He has removed every barrier between mankind and himself, and nothing now stands between. Romans, again, is preparing for Ephesians, but Ephesians is not repeating Romans. In this epistle, we soar from the earthly and the physical to the spiritual and celestial. There we learn that God is to have an administration of the complement of the heirs to head up all in the Christ. And that administration, we as the ecclesia, which is his body, are to be his complement. Awesome is the statement of verses 22 and 23 of Ephesians chapter 1. He gives him as head over all to the ecclesia, which is his body, the complement of the one completing the all in all. Beautiful forward of this book, and I will continue on Monday. This is going to be powerful, so I love it. But thank you for watching, and really, happy Friday today. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.